Hello everyone, welcome back to Christian History, the talk show. Last time I had this talk show, I talked about the history of American college football. Today I'm going to return to the subject, but today the topic is how I would fix college football. If you haven't seen my video on the history of American college football, you can check in the link in the description. For a short review, in the early years of college football, things weren't that great, but everything isn't all that great when a new baby starts to walk. They start to fall down. So problems arose, and solutions were brought in to fix the problems. And some of those problems were solved, but there is one problem that has been around since that time, and it has not been solved. Currently, it is the grandfather of several problems that have arisen today, and especially in the 2025 season last year. And that is the AP poll. So, how is the AP poll a problem? Well, it's kind of obvious. You see a bunch of teams from P4 conferences inside the AP poll and very few G5s, if any. And really, that is unfair to me. But what's really unfair is when I see a 9-3 team above a 12-1 team. But what we have to understand is that the AP poll, I described it as the grandfather of several problems that have arisen really from the last season. That is true, but really, if you were to describe it even farther, it is the great-great-grandfather of a whole bunch of problems in the history of college football, dating back to a few years from the beginning. But to explain to you how bad the AP poll is, we must really discuss how bad another poll system was that was truly hated by sports fans everywhere in college football. And that is the BCS poll system. The human factor is something that is very valuable, something that AI and computer simulations can never replace. Specifically, the BCS poll system was a computer-based poll system that ranked teams based off of their strength of schedule. But here's the problem with that.
Glad to have you with us in our College Game Day Bowl Selection Special. I'm Reese Davis, along with Trev, who's already spoken, and Mark May, who's here too. You guys know what the BCS stands for?
What?
Big, chaotic situation, especially after the earthquake that we had in college football last night, and tremors still being felt as we awaited the release of the final BCS standings to see who would play in the Nokia Sugar Bowl for the BCS title. Now, the BCS is made up of these factors. It's the strength of schedule, it's your computer ranking, it's your quality win, it's your number of losses, and it's the poll ranking. So it would appear that the human polls released on Sunday would be of paramount importance, the key issue being where would Oklahoma drop? Started with the coaches, USC, after beating Oregon State #1, SEC champion LSU #2, the Sooners tumbled from 1 to 3, and the AP mirrored the coaches. So as a result, after we get these polls, what do we have in the BCS standings?
Oh, no.
Inverting.
Whoa.
LSU stayed #2. Oklahoma remains #1 by virtue of the points they piled up over the course of a dominating season prior to being dominated by Kansas State. So that now leaves us with these BCS games. In the Nokia Sugar Bowl for the BCS title, it will be Oklahoma against LSU. And trust me, New Orleans will be jumping. That is going to be a very difficult ticket on January 4th. You can see it on ABC Sports, as you can all of these games. The other national championship game for the Rose Bowl presented by Citi will be #1 in both human polls, USC taking on Michigan on New Year's Day. And we've got the old Big Ten, Pac-10 flavor back in Pasadena as well. Big 12 champion Kansas State going to the Tostitos Fiesta Bowl to take on the Buckeyes on January 2nd. And the FedEx Orange Bowl. You know, if familiarity does indeed breed contempt, the Hurricanes and the Seminoles are going to downright despise each other if they don't already. This meeting, combined with the season opener between these two next year as members of the ACC, 3 times in less than 11 months that Florida State and Miami get together. Obviously, that is a back burner issue. The front burner issue is that the #1 team in the land in both polls, USC, not in the BCS title game.
The AP poll is the Associated Press poll, not the Associated Public poll. This poll system is based off what people write in to the press and also from individual sports analysts. They can view a game and put their ranking opinion for all of the teams. The reason the BCS system failed is because it was a lack of the human factor that caused its downfall, as well as its unpopularity. But the AP poll has too much human factor in it and not enough statistics or really anything else in it. And too much human factor leads to corruption and mismanagement. We all know that. So, now that I've discussed the problem with the AP poll, how do we fix it? Well, I have developed a poll system myself, and it basically produces the same results as the AP poll would. I'm not going to reveal it to you, but I will describe it to you in the best way I can. Unlike the AP poll, which basically just does whatever the sports reporters say, this poll system groups together all of the teams with the same game record and then basically ranks them through statistics 1, 2, 3. So basically you have the undefeated teams at top, teams with 1 loss in the middle, teams with 2 losses, and it goes down and down and down and down. That's how it follows. Now, the automatic problem that I see that's going to show up is the public's going to be mad at which teams get placed in the rankings. Now, hypothetically, a G5 could be all the way at the top week 1 and then down low by the end of the season. And the public can say, why didn't you just put that G5 where they belonged, not in the rankings? Well, here's what I say about that. With over 130 teams in our division, the FBS division, the rankings should be a system not only to rank the best out of the bunch, but to give the G6 teams hope that they can get into the playoff at the end of the regular season. Now, to give you an example of how my poll system works, let's compare it to the AP poll. Okay, right here we have the preseason AP poll. You see all those teams? Okay, now going into week 2, here are the results from week 1. Now look at that poll right there. Now, going into week 2, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 teams that still stay in the top 25 that have suffered a loss. So basically, we have all those teams that suffered a loss drop down in the rankings, but by week 2, but not out of them. What my poll system does is it treats every single team equally in the division, G6 or P4, regardless of what team or what conference you're in. So that means everybody's on the same scale, but you're all playing on the same playing field. No ifs, ands, or buts. The first 4 weeks are chaotic. It steadies out, and the teams that eventually get into the top 25 hardly get out. So for my number 1, we have BYU, followed by Missouri, USC, Texas Tech, Ole Miss, Florida, Boston College, Pittsburgh, Iowa State. Iowa State is an exception here. Iowa State has 2 wins. The reason why they're not number 1 in my poll is because I'm not counting week 0. Week 0 does not officially count for them until week 4, when a whole bunch of other teams have played 4 games, basically. And they had a bye week. So their first bye week stabilized everything. So continuing, Iowa State was number 9. Number 10 is North Texas, followed by number 11, West Kentucky, Illinois, UConn, Arkansas, Navy, San Diego State, Vanderbilt, West Virginia, Kansas, Oregon, Georgia, Air Force, Penn State, and JMU. Memphis is number 26, FYI. So that's your rankings for the end of week 1. Now, I know a lot of you people are very mad that BYU is number 1 and Georgia is number 22, as well as Oregon is number 21. But that is just the first few weeks. The first few weeks, like I said, are chaotic. For those of the top 25, Florida, Kansas, Air Force, Yukon, West Virginia, Boston College, and San Diego State, all of them lose their next game, and that demotes them out of the rankings. I hear what someone's thinking. Is it possible for a G5 to assert claim over the number 1 seed? The answer is yes. For the record, Memphis does take the number 1 seed in week 6, but only because all the other top teams had a bye week and they did not. And for the record, they drop out of number 1 in week 7 because they themselves then had a bye week, and Texas Tech then takes over as the number 1 team by that point. Something else about my poll system that I really like, other than giving hope for the G6s to get into the top 25 and for undefeated teams staying at the top, is this poll system can be applied to the conference standings system. It essentially can fix the tiebreak system that doomed the ACC last year. So all you'd have to do to apply it to the conference standings is, instead of all of the games counting, both conference and non-conference, you just focus on the conference and use the same statistics there, and you'd have your winner, regardless of the 4 or 6-way tie in the conference. The conferences, they have a problem, a bad one. And it's not that there are not enough teams in the conference. No. There are too many teams in the conference, period. Should there be a set limit? I think so. Josh Pate thinks so. He says the number should be 10. I like 12. I like a 12-team conference set, but also a team has to play 8 conference games in the regular season, including the rivalry week. That's what I like. And for the record, the minimum number of teams that I'd like for a conference is 7. You get 7 teams, you got a conference. Now, ignoring the Pac-12 because they only have 2 teams for 2 years, I'm just going to ignore that because they were a P5, a power conference. But they are applying new teams this coming season, so I'm just going to ignore that. If a conference had 7 teams in it minimum, they would only have to play 6 conference games, and they would continue doing so if they only had 7 teams, if they only had 8 teams. But then at 9, then they would have to have 8 conference games played in the regular season. That's what I'd say. One last thing I want to say about the conferences. I do not like the concept of regions, dividing the conference into East and West. If you're going to do that, like the Southeastern Conference, split it up into the Southwest and Southeastern. Just bring back the Southwestern Conference and be done with it. The independence problem. Independence problem? What's the independence problem? Okay. Otherwise known as the Notre Dame problem, or Notre Dame question. You got a problem with Notre Dame? No, I don't. But a lot of other people do. People are criticizing Notre Dame because they are an independent and they're not in the conference. I mean, Stephen A. Smith even weighed in with his own comment.
So their financial interests are commingled to some degree. And with this scenario playing out this way, for Miami and the ACC to be undermining Notre Dame's bid to the college football playoff, it is clearly understandable why Notre Dame and their athletic director has this level of frustration.
Yeah, he's aggravated.
No, it isn't. No, it isn't. Hold on, Jeff. I wanted to chime in here. No, it isn't. You couldn't be more wrong, CeCe.
Thank you.
You couldn't be more wrong. And oh, by the way, before I even get into it, let me just let you know, we got love for you on this show, so we ain't gonna bring up the fact that 7-5 Duke team that had no business in the ACC championship game as far as I was concerned, beat your Virginia Cavaliers. We ain't gonna even go there. We ain't gonna even get it. I mean, what happened to y'all? Y'all 10-2, top 20 team, ACC championship on the line, and you gonna lose to Duke? You gotta be kidding me. I ain't want to talk to you. Hey, please, don't even get me started with Virginia. Let me say this to you. They don't have a case. This is very foul comments by Notre Dame. Put on your big boy pants, grow up, and accept accountability for the role you played in all of this. Not just because you're not in a conference, you're an independent. It's because it's only with football. You want to talk about your relationship with the ACC, right? Well, all of these other sports are involved with the ACC. Except football. Oh, we want to keep those dollars for ourselves. Now, I had my researcher look it up. Under the most recent media rights agreement extended in 2023 through 2029, Jeff, Notre Dame is estimated to receive about $50 million per year. Now, the Big Ten schools, those numbers are in the 60s. But remember, there's revenue sharing within the schools, that play in a conference. Notre Dame don't have to share with anybody. So here you are with your selfish. You're out there being an independent, okay? Sitting up there dictating your schedule, having your own media rights deals. You understand? Able to dictate so many things. And the one thing you can't control, you want to whine and moan about it because your team lost head up to Miami to open the season. Games in August counted. You wanted to play it, right? You went out there and played it, and you lost. Then you turn around and you lose to Texas A&M. So you start off the season 0-2. Well, you won 10 straight by an average of 29.7 points. But who did you beat? Your storied victories was over Pittsburgh and USC. There's an APB out for both of those programs when it comes to the college football players. Ain't nobody thinking about them.
What Stephen is basically saying here makes sense in a lot of ways. But that is really the criticism that Notre Dame and really independents get a lot of the time. And the thing he said about the money, spreading the money around, that is true. If you're in a conference and you receive revenue, you have to share some of that revenue, however you got it really, throughout your conference with your other teams. And to me, that is dumb and that is just stupid and it shouldn't have to be that way. And frankly, I am not surprised that Notre Dame opts out of being in a conference. I have no problem with that. I would work toward getting that out of a requirement for being in a conference and helping Notre Dame get in a conference, quite frankly. I'd rather than be in a conference. I don't exactly care which one, but I'd rather than be in a conference. Thing is, I respect their decision for being an independent. That's all I can say about that. But the hardline criticism that Stephen was referring to in that clip was down to the fact that Alabama went into the conference title game, lost by 21 points to Georgia, and dropped down to a 10-3 record. Notre Dame did not play a conference title game. So the playoff committee decided to promote Alabama, who lost their conference title game, over Notre Dame. They punished Notre Dame for not being in a conference. I don't really care that they punished Notre Dame for not being in a conference, but they picked the wrong team to punish them over. I mean, you had other teams more qualified in the top 25 to get into the playoff other than Alabama. So that's the problem with independents. They don't have a conference title game, so they get looked down upon by the playoff committee when it comes down to the playoff. And here's the angriest thing that the playoff committee did to rectify and spruce up the aftermath. From now on, Notre Dame, only Notre Dame, if they are ranked number 12 in the AP poll at the end of the regular season, they will get an automatic spot in the playoff. You're on the verge of ruining college football and you just made a dumber move toward it. So, I am here to present to you a solution to fix the independence problem. We all know that the 12-team playoff bracket, the new expanded playoff system, has demoted the bowl season. We all know that. I know it didn't really look like it in 2024, but it happened in 2025. So how do we salvage the situation? Well, I have my own solution, but I want to let Josh Pate give his answer first.
Which leads to a revolutionary Thanksgiving weekend. Because on that Thanksgiving weekend, it's where step 2 comes into play. We're going to have conference championship games. We're just going to have them Thanksgiving weekend instead of the week after Thanksgiving. So last weekend in November, instead of first weekend in December, we're having conference championship games. Your SEC, ACC, Big 10, Big 12, all the G5s. But you know what the conference championship games look like. We have a big problem in this sport right now. Bowl season has been rendered largely irrelevant compared to what it used to be, which is ridiculous. So I'm taking the shock panels, I'm rubbing them together, whatever that gel is in between, putting them on the chest of bowl season. Clear! Boom! Bowl season's back. Here's what I would like to do. I'd like to take 6 bowls. Don't particularly care which ones they are. Let's just call it the Citrus Bowl and the Pop-Tart Bowl, Cheez-It Bowl, etc. And I would like to take 6 bowls, either that Friday after Thanksgiving or that Saturday. You guys can choose because we got conference championship games to play as well. And I would like to have a 13th game, essentially, for a bunch of teams. I would like to do it basically where take all the teams that are going to play in conference championship games, take them off the board. They're already preoccupied. But this is what it would have looked like this year. My Pop-Tart Bowl is Oregon versus Houston. My Cheez-It Bowl is Ole Miss versus Michigan. I've got A&M, Arizona. I've got Oklahoma, USC. I've got Texas versus Utah. I've got Notre Dame versus Vanderbilt. These are bowl games. They are also college football playoff data points. These games count because the day after, that Saturday, that is Selection Sunday. 9 a.m. that morning, after conference championship and bowl play-in weekend, that is Selection Sunday. I think it would be an amazing weekend. We have taken half a dozen bowls and we have maintained the image of the bowl. We have totally re-engineered the meaning of that bowl. We have totally re-engineered the motivation behind the teams playing in the bowls, and we've made those 6 bowl games sort of semi-play-in games. Not in the true sense of a play-in game, but those games count because the final playoff rankings are after those games happen. So those are final data points, and we got 4 big-time Power 4 conference championship games. We got all the G5 conference title games. We got another 6 games that have huge playoff implications right there. You could play yourself into or out of the playoff in many cases in the Pop-Tart Bowl. Like, whomst amongst us doesn't want that?
Okay, real quick. Here is the list of bowl games that Josh Pate has proposed to save the bowl season and essentially to help the playoff season. I like this plan wholeheartedly, but I want to weigh in my ideas here. What does this have to do with Notre Dame? Glad you asked. So you see Notre Dame, they're playing Vanderbilt. Last game that Josh has on that board, right? I agree with Josh wholeheartedly in this, but here's my own idea. Regards to Notre Dame. What Josh just said right there, take some random bowl games and put them in this new section. I want to add on to what he did here. So the Notre Dame game against Vanderbilt. Cut Vanderbilt out. So, the problem that I was discussing a minute ago was a lot of people, high up people, are not happy with Notre Dame and Real UConn because they're independent and they're not in a conference. Now, in high school football, otherwise known as varsity football, where they go by regions instead of conferences, there's a region that's independent teams. Teams that aren't in an official region, just like the independents. But they have their own playoff and region championship, just like the conference title games. So why couldn't we do the same thing in college football that we do in high school football? So to sum it up, my idea is this. One of the bowl games that's played is the Independence Bowl. We take that game and reserve it for the 2 best teams that are independent. In other words, Notre Dame and UConn. basically like a conference title game. Now, since we're on the subject of the college football playoff right now, let's dive more into it. So, currently the playoff has a problem. One problem that a lot of people are saying is that the wrong teams have not gotten in the playoff, and that the playoff should just be expanded so that all those teams can get in. The one I'm referring to that's backing this, the 2014 playoff, really, is from the Big Ten. People from the Big Ten are proposing a 24-team playoff to solve everything. Basically, copy the FCS divisions playoff and put it in the FBS. Number one, I despise that idea. I think it's lunacy right now to expand from 12 to 24 because the 12-team playoff works very well. In my opinion, the playoff committee did a very poor job picking certain teams to go into the playoff and not picking certain teams to get in the playoff. I'm referring to Alabama and Notre Dame, to be specific. This system that Josh has proposed, it works. In my opinion, it works. So here's my thoughts on it. The Saturday that conference title games happen, that Friday before is when these bowl game data points happen. And I'm going to refer to them by my new name, the semi-playoff bowl games. So Josh Pate, if you don't watch his show, he's referred to multiple times. He is a regular season guy. He values the regular season. I do too. And he thinks, rightfully so, that an expanded playoff will devalue the regular season. I, of course, agree with him on that and have seen it. This is how I want to view college football. Regular season and postseason are separate things, but the regular season has a major impact on the postseason. So in the regular season, a school builds up their profile and creates an application to be in the playoff. That application, in my opinion, based off of my poll system that I mentioned earlier, is you gotta at least win 10 games and you're in consideration for the playoff. 10 out of 12 games you gotta win to be in consideration. Now, what Josh has right here is based off of the AP poll and its rankings. Now, my version is different than Josh Pate's, but the concept of it is the same with many of the same teams. So, for the sake of brevity, let's, like Josh Pate, go back to 2025 and solve the problems in 2025. Okay, fixing the issues of the 2025 football season. What I'm going to do is use my ranking system and use Josh Pate's design to fix what happened in 2025. So, here is my version of what's going to happen. Starting at the end of rivalry week, here is the poll results. We have 2 teams that are undefeated, 7 teams who have 11 wins and 1 loss. Counting the Army-Navy game, we have 10 more teams who are 10-2. And finally, we have 12 teams who are 9-3. So, the thing that I said about consideration for the playoff, with a 16-team playoff, we have 4 teams that are looking for a playoff spot over these other 10-2 teams. But we also have 12 other teams that are in range of a playoff spot as well. This is how I envision college football. So, what is currently week 0, the thing that I talked about with Iowa State, that does not happen. We have 1 bye week for every team in the regular season, not 2 like we do now. So, that fixes that problem. The regular season officially ends for all the other teams with rivalry week, but the final game of the regular season after rivalry week is the Army-Navy game. That is the demarcation zone for the end of the regular season. So the profiles have been built up for 10 teams, and we have 10 teams who are submitting applications for the playoff. But we only have 6 slots available. But last week, before the playoffs officially come, everybody's had a bye week except Army and Navy. Now, Navy does not make the conference title games. They do not. But they will be qualified for a semi-playoff bowl game. Now, don't forget, the unofficial Independence Championship, otherwise known as the Independence Bowl. Notre Dame and UConn. Notre Dame is 10-2, UConn's 9-3. Now, here's the thing about the postseason. I don't like to see rematches from the regular season. So I've got a bone to pick with the postseason here. We got some problems with some conferences. Currently, the Sun Belt Conference still has regions. Well, in my world, they do not. So the team who qualifies for the Sun Belt Championship is JMU, who is already ranked, but we also have either Troy, who has not played them yet, or Old Dominion University, who has played them already. So it's essentially going to be a rematch between Old Dominion and JMU unless they say no. Now that is allowed in my world, but honestly, it doesn't really matter. We had some problems with the ACC. We had, how many? Five teams with a 6-2 conference game season, and only one team with a 7-1. Who goes to the title game? It's Miami. Miami versus Virginia. I'm guessing Miami wins. So that settles that. Based off of my poll system, Miami and Virginia will go. No questions. Ooh, the one I'm looking forward to. The SEC. SEC, there was no problem with the SEC. Oh yes, there is. We have 4 teams with a tie with a 7-1 game record. Georgia, Texas A&M, Ole Miss, and Alabama. You notice I said Texas A&M after Georgia? Well, they are going to go to the title game. They aren't squeezing out of this one. They're going into the title game. So, who wins, Texas A&M or Georgia? I would guess Georgia, but Texas A&M does a better job than Alabama does. That's my opinion. Just because a team loses a certain game does not mean they're going to be eliminated from the playoff. Because we're treating everybody on the same playing field, it really is a matter of how everybody fared and did you suffer the worst of it. To further separate the regular season from the postseason, these semi-playoff games are to show how these teams currently stand now that they're entering the postseason. Because all these teams except for Navy have had a break. So, to start off, every 9-3 team who lost their semi-playoff games are immediately out. And for the record, Western Michigan wins the conference game, but they have a 9-4 record, so they are out too. So we all know about all the teams who win and lose. Hypothetically, I'm going to say Miami beats Virginia and Georgia beats Texas A&M. Texas A&M, just because they lost, are not out. This last round is a do-or-die situation for teams looking to secure a playoff spot. Now, in my world, I do have a college football playoff committee, but this one's reformed and I head it. Okay, so the end result of all of that is Indiana is still the number 1 team and they still win the title. So that's the end result in my opinion, but a lot of things would happen differently. Don't forget to like, share, and to subscribe. If you have any comments, please write them down, because I'd like to hear your thoughts on this. See you next time.
Thanks for watching this video. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and check me out over on Patreon. The link is in the description.